Hey, it's Jeziel here for another episode of Table Talk, where we give short answers to tall topics. And joining me today, I have the pleasure of sitting right next to, it is Andersen from EG Financial Services. Andersen, so good to have you back. What are you bringing to the table today?
Well, today, I want to talk about my thoughts on FOMO.
Fear of missing out.
Yes.
Okay.
We hear this being coined, it's like, it's a daily, it's like our common vernacular that we use. I want to talk about how it is birthed. I want to talk about its power.
Yeah.
And I want to explain why we should actually fear it.
Oh, okay. Well, let's get straight into it then. Let's talk about the birth of FOMO.
Yeah, okay. Before that, let's jump back to 1979.
Okay.
Where Daniel Kahneman came up with, wrote a paper and came up with this prospect theory, okay? Mm-hmm. And that is the theory that explains the concept of loss aversion. Okay, don't worry, I'm going to explain this. Okay. And loss aversion is I suppose the basic foundation of our understanding of what FOMO is. Okay?
Right.
So I've got here a coin in my hand, and if it's tails, you will lose $100.
Oof, I don't like the odds.
Now, what would be the winning bee for heads for you to accept this gamble?
Oh, I look, I'm tight with money.
Yep.
So, for me personally,
Yep.
I'd have to go like $1,000.
$1,000?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
It's inflation, right?
Yes,
I can't afford to lose it.
Okay.
But I guess maybe the average person would go,
Yeah.
it's 50-50.
Yeah.
So let's just go $100 maybe. For the average person, or $200 because then you're doubling.
Well, I can tell you now that an average person, no one would choose 100 as the opposite odds.
Because
all of them would, something like, maybe not 1,000, but but they would choose something big. Okay?
Yeah.
And that demonstrates our innate ability, our wired up nature to avoid loss.
Yeah, right.
That's what we have done. We've just done that. Okay, and the stakes, when the stakes are higher, we will up the amount at which we need to win before we would accept that particular gamble.
Yes.
And that is in essence loss aversion.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Now, loss aversion is not just money, because sometimes, for example, if we have plowed in a lot of our effort or our time, sometimes we don't want to lose that as well. Sure. That's why companies are happy to give free trials on softwares.
Right, okay.
This is very, very common in the gaming industries. So when my kids come and ask, there's this great game that I want to download, it's a free weekend trial, I will always say no. Yeah. First of all, I don't want to be playing games for the whole weekend. But more importantly, after that weekend, because they plowed so much time and effort, defeating all the bosses, that they go, I don't want to do that all over again.
Yeah.
We call this in finance the sunk cost fallacy. So we don't want to lose, even if it's time, we don't want to lose that.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Now, loss aversion is different from risk aversion.
Okay,
there's a slight difference. Risk aversion is we don't like to put ourselves in that position. But you and I know of people who are, happy to take risks, right?
Oh boy, do I know! I know a lot of them.
And in general, people with high risk tolerance and low loss tolerance, they are usually very upset because they want to, they want the challenge.
Yeah, right.
But they can't accept the losses.
Yeah.
That's when I suppose that one lottery ticket, they will still keep coming back, right?
Yeah.
And so we can see loss aversion at play.
Yeah.
In our human behavior. That we are in general wired up such that we don't like to accept or experience loss.
For sure.
Okay, and this is the foundation of FOMO. Now, before I do the experiment on you,
okay, oh no, I always get nervous.
I just want to say that loss aversion is not a bad thing.
Right.
It's our survival mechanism. But unfortunately, companies and their marketing department have caught wind and they're using it against us.
Yeah, right.
Okay, I'll show you an example.
Okay, perfect.
So this is where
So this is how an everyday company is doing this.
correct.
Is that right? Okay.
Correct. So we're gonna lift the lid
Okay.
on their tricks. Okay. So this is you're going for a 3-hour movie.
Okay, Lord of the Rings.
It's a long movie.
Yeah.
So really, you need something substantial. Okay?
Yeah.
And if you're like my family, anything small popcorn is gonna disappear.
God.
but even before the title comes up, it's gone. So you need something substantial, right?
Yeah.
And so I've got 3 choices here. I've got the small popcorn at $3. The middle or the medium size one at $6.50,
Yeah.
and the large one at $7. Which one would you pick?
Yeah, I'm 100% going the biggest one.
The large, right?
Yeah, the large. $7.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, there's no chance you would pick the middle, right?
There's not a chance. No, but 50 cents extra.
Correct.
Look how much extra you're getting.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's a large popcorn. Okay.
You're right.
Now you are exactly like everybody else.
Yeah.
That have
It's a trap.
that have been sucked in. I'll tell you why. Because National Geographic actually did the same experiment. Okay, they first put out these 2 choices.
Yeah.
The small popcorn and the large popcorn at $7. So the small at $3 and the large at $7. Nobody picked the large.
Yeah, right.
Not one person picked the large popcorn. In fact,
Very interesting.
If somebody wanted more popcorn, they'll buy 2 small.
Yeah.
But when they put this up, everyone went for the
deal.
$7 large popcorn. Nobody chose the small.
Yeah,
And it's
wow.
amazing how, and we call this in finance the decoy effect. They put a
Right.
decoy. The decoy is a $6.50.
Wow.
Okay, so
So they know no one's going to go for it.
yeah, no one's gonna go for
Yeah.
it. Okay, no one's gonna go for the $6.50, right? But you think that, oh boy, it's small, looks really small, and I could have bought 2 small, but somehow my brain is just now wired up like 50 cents more. I'm gonna go for the large.
Yep.
and you've seen this. You've seen this in what? In fast foods.
Oh, yeah, I've done it all the time.
They said you want to upsize for just $1. You look at the choices there and you go, oh yeah, if I pay $1 more, I get a large.
Yeah.
Right? They've done this everywhere in laptops, electronics, mobile phones.
Yeah, okay.
So if they want to force you to make a certain purchase, they put a decoy in. So like for example, sometimes they'll go, okay, maybe they'll put a really low specky one, like a low specky phone, with very little features, and you never buy it.
Yeah, right.
But they'll always put the one that's really good, like over the top. You will never ever choose that one, but because it's over the top specs. But they put one in the middle.
Yeah,
It's
right.
just about right. But if you look at in terms of specs to cost,
Yeah.
that's probably the highest.
Yeah,
Because
right.
they know everyone is going to buy the middle one. So that's how they force, depending on what they want you to buy. They would put a decoy in
Wow.
so that they somehow entice you to do what they have already planned of what you want. They want you to do.
Okay, so you've lifted the lid, as you said.
No.
We're still,
There's more.
we're still lifting. We're only halfway.
Wait, there's more. Okay.
Oh, I've already failed at this one. I don't want to do another one.
Okay. So before we continue, I just want
Yeah.
you to know that they didn't violate your free choice.
No, it's true.
You willingly chose the large one.
Yeah.
Okay. But they have now upped the ante. I'll show you what they are now doing. Okay.
Okay.
So if you think this is bad, I'll show you what is worse now. Okay. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Oh, no.
This is what they are doing today. Right? Oops, wrong one. This is what they're doing today. So they still kept the small. They kept the medium at $6.50. But they jack up the large to $9, and they put a big fat sign saying, "Today only,
Yeah, right.
for a limited time."
That pulls on my FOMO strings.
Bang, $7. You save an additional $2. Not only are you paying 50 cents more for a large,
Yeah.
but you're saving $2 for if you have chosen the large. It's only available on Black Friday sales, or,
Yeah.
like Christmas, Boxing Days, whatever it is, whatever sale that they have, they are gonna put it there. Such that not only are you satisfied with the purchase, I bought large. That's a good choice. Not only that, you're patting yourself on the back.
I'm happy.
I've made a savings, I've helped my family. I've made my family, richer by choosing the large. No,
This is too real for me. This is too real.
now you talk about impulse buying.
Yeah.
Often we are being sucked in
On these
into this concept, and they pull you in without you knowing. Now, and you have in all these, and what they do is that they often pull in an expert, so-called expert, and the expert will say, right, cryptocurrency is gonna go, is worth $1 gazillion, and right now, if you get in early, you are gonna be making that gazillion profits.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So they would pull in an expert to validate the original price or the original value of the item. A large popcorn is worth $9.
Yeah, right.
And your brain somehow, because of the $6.50 that is there, you go, oh yeah, that's logical, right? If it's $6.50, for a medium popcorn, $9 seems like a reasonable price for a large.
Yeah.
But today only, it's $7.
I'll take two. So
You take two.
you've lifted the lid. How do we recognize this? Obviously, popcorn, it's a great analogy, example. But in everyday life, how do we spot it from a mile away?
Okay.
Please tell us it's easy.
No, it's not.
Oh, no.
They are very good at this game. And the house always wins.
Yeah. Okay.
Even now, even knowing what they are doing, even though we have revealed the tricks, it is still hard to avoid.
Yeah, right.
All we can do is minimize the impact, but it's hard to avoid getting caught.
Right.
Okay, so I've got here, a couple of tips that perhaps we can consider.
Okay, cool.
First of all, look at the features of the products. So take a look at what you really want. Don't look at the price,
Okay.
because they're gonna entice you with the pricing.
Yeah.
Okay, so look at the features. What do I actually need? Okay, if you're looking at an investment, look at the risks. Am I happy to take on those particular set of risks before I go in? So don't look at the pricing, because they are going to manipulate the price such that it will be attractive. The option that they want you to choose will be very attractive.
Yeah.
Okay, so look at the features. Second one is apply the 10-day test.
10-day test. Okay.
Because there is often, when you buy a product, there is a 10-day cooling off period.
Right.
So apply that cooling off period on yourself. Every time when my kid comes up and say, oh, I really need this, it's really good, I gotta have this. Talk to me in 10 days.
See if you're that excited.
Yeah. If you're still excited and if it's still there, okay, then we'll talk about it.
Yeah, right.
So the 10-day cooling off period, apply it on yourself, so that at least you don't jump in just because something is available and it's seemingly on offer.
And obviously this doesn't work in all circumstances, because the popcorn, 10 days later, you've seen the movie. That's good. So look at the features.
Yep.
That's number one.
Yeah.
And of course, yes.
Apply the 10-day if you can. Apply, chill.
Yeah. Relax.
Cool down before you jump in. Seek counsel. Third tip, seek counsel from someone that is different from you. Okay, don't ask someone that's similar to you for advice. I've got a friend, and she's into trading in shares, and she asked a stockbroker for advice. I was like, you're on the same team, right? And then she said, oh, I lost money in that purchase. I said, of course, he's telling you what you want to hear, right?
Yeah.
My wife and I were very different. So that's a very good thing. So she's really different from me.
Yeah.
So I always, as a litmus test, ask her if she agrees.
Yeah.
And she often doesn't. Which is a good thing, right? Because
of course, yeah.
It's checks and balances. Rather than jumping in, someone perhaps can give you a different perspective. Do you actually need all those features in that particular phone?
Yeah.
Does it make coffee?
It
doesn't. Then perhaps it's not a purchase that you want to make, right?
Yeah.
And the last one is set limits. Set yourself some limits as to when you're making a purchase, alone what is that limit that you want to set? Just like, if you enter into any an anti-game, you have a walk-away price.
Yeah.
For us, I think when we first got married, we've always set it at $50. And that's kind of pretty low, for anything. These days it's hard to find things below $50, right? But we've always been, if it's more than $50, we would at least let each other know.
Yeah.
And after 20 years, we're still having that
Wow.
that same philosophy that if it's above $50, perhaps send her a text, just to
Chat
say,
about it.
I'm gonna make this. What do you think?
Yeah.
I think having that checks and balances, we still can't avoid the tricks that they play, but hopefully we can minimize the loss that we're experiencing.
That is awesome. So many tips for me, Elson. Oh man, I got to retain them all though. And we have a weekly chat, so there's a lot coming in. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Table Talk. My guest, it is Elson Go from EG Financial Services. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll chat again in probably a week.
It's a pleasure.